All right, hello everybody on the line, and thank you so much for joining us today for what I know will be a great and informative webinar. My name is Whitney Miller, and I am a board member of the Women's Veterinary Leadership Development Initiative, and we are very thrilled today to partner with Miss Stacy Pursell of the Vet Recruiter to bring you this webinar on a bulletproof blueprint to advance your veterinary career, the mindset, skills, and action needed in today's market. WVLDI is a grassroots organization that was formed to support women in seeking and achieving leadership, policy, and decision-making positions within all areas of professional veterinary activity. Our vision is to develop leaders for the benefit of the profession and to deliver on the promise of veterinary medicine to our society. Please follow us on our social media platforms. We have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. And please go to our website at wvldi.org. We post information there on events. All of our contact information is on there, as well as there's resources. We have events at most of the major veterinary conferences, different CE sessions, as well as networking events, so always be on the lookout for those when you're attending your CE. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce Ms. Stacy Pursell. Stacy has over 20 years of experience in executive search, recruitment, and consulting, and works both in the animal health industry as well as the veterinary profession with veterinary practices. You can get in contact with Stacy through thevetrecruiter.com, as well as follow their job openings on her website. We will be recording this webinar, and it will be available to listen to afterwards online. I myself have benefited from Stacy's insight and help while navigating the career landscape, and she's a great networking contact. And now I will turn it over to Stacy.
All right, thank you so much, Whitney, and hello everyone. Good afternoon. I want to thank WVLDI for hosting today's webinar. So I am Stacy Pursell of the Vet Recruiter, and I'm glad that you could join us today for this webinar about building a bulletproof blueprint for advancing your veterinary career. Now, as Whitney said, we are recording the webinar. I do have my slides up. I hope everybody can see my slides. Whitney, are you able to see my slides?
Yep, I think we're good to go.
Okay, great. All right. Well, as you can see by the title of today's presentation, there are three main areas that I'll be exploring with this webinar. And let me see why my slides are not advancing. Okay, there we go. All right, so the three main areas that I'll be exploring with today's webinar are mindset, skills, and action. And before we get to the first of those areas, I'd like to lay some groundwork. That groundwork takes the form of the challenges that currently exist in today's marketplace. If you want to advance your veterinary career, then you must know about some of these challenges. And there are four main challenges that I would like to discuss today, starting with this one. The fact is that more and more people are competing for the best jobs in the marketplace. And I'm talking about not just jobs in general, but the best jobs. And it is true that the economy has been growing since the Great Recession. It's also true that many of the jobs that were lost during the Great Recession have been replaced. However, the population has also increased during that time with more people entering the workforce. And not only are more people competing for the best jobs, but there are also more, not only are there more people competing for jobs in general, but there are also more people competing for the best jobs in the marketplace. Now, in my recruiting practice, I work both in the veterinary profession as well as in the animal health industry. And there have been a lot of mergers and acquisitions and consolidations on both sides. In the veterinary profession side, there are a lot of job opportunities right now, even with all the consolidation, because they're not necessarily reducing the number of veterinary clinics after these consolidations happen. On the industry side, there seem to be about half of the companies, especially the large ones, than when I first started as a recruiter in the animal health industry about 20 years ago. And because when consolidation happens on the industry side, they don't necessarily need two sales departments or two marketing departments. They're trying to increase their efficiencies. And so sometimes, unfortunately, people lose their jobs. But not only that, there are a lot of people who are trying to make a move right now from the veterinary profession to working in industry. And so the competition to get good jobs in industry right now is particularly fierce. Challenge number 2 is that some of the most sought after jobs are not posted online. So more people are competing for the best jobs, and the problem is that many of these positions are also not advertised online. And as a search consultant or recruiter, I use those words interchangeably, I have filled numerous jobs before they were posted anywhere online. And if jobs are not posted online, this means that you might not have access to them and you can't apply for them if you're not aware of them. The third challenge is applying directly for jobs, including through online job ads, is simply not effective. Hiring expert Lou Adler wrote a great article a few months ago titled "Why Job Boards Are the Worst Way to Get a Job." In that article, Lou referenced a report from Lever Co., an applicant tracking system, and the report stated that among their clients, only 1% out of 150 people found a job by applying directly, either on the company's website or through an online job posting. And this ratio was based on 1.5 million applicants for 15,000 different jobs. So if you see a job online and you apply for it, this means you have a 1 out of 150 chance of getting hired, and that might be if you're lucky. So when you leave yourself at the mercy of job postings, there are many variables that are out of your control. And as we discussed in Challenge 2, some of these opportunities are not posted at all. And this is another reason why relying on job postings alone will only take you so far with your job search and your career. The fourth challenge is that job security is a myth. In today's employment marketplace, there is simply no such thing as job security. And as I just mentioned, there have been countless mergers and acquisitions within the veterinary profession and the animal health industry. And some of these mergers, especially in the animal health industry, have resulted in layoffs. So people have lost their position, and it's not necessarily because of something they did. It was just a matter of the circumstances. So no matter what you have accomplished so far in your career, there are no guarantees that the job that you have today will be there tomorrow. So even if you're happy in your current job, it's in your best interest to keep your options open and to be receptive to other employment opportunities. So now that I've laid that groundwork, let's talk about the proper mindset for advancing your veterinary career or animal health career. And the first step is recognizing that there are two main ways that professionals can grow their careers. The first way is that you can grow your career with your current employer. And the second way is that you can grow your career by finding a better employment opportunity with another organization. Each year, millions of people choose one of these two paths, and it doesn't matter which one you choose as long as the path you choose is the right one for you. So with that in mind, organizations want employees who will do three things, or all three things, or one of these three things. Number one, make the company money. The second thing is to save the company money. And the third thing is to provide the organization some other form of value. It doesn't matter if you want to grow your career with your current employer or with another employer, you must provide value, whether that value is making money, saving money, or other ways of providing value. So let's use the example of growing your career with your current employer. In order to maximize your earning potential with your current employer, you must maximize your value as an employee. And if you take away anything from today's webinar, this is the most important thing I'd like for you to remember, and this is something that you can write down. There is a direct correlation between these two things, the value that you provide to your employer and your earning potential and opportunities available to you within that organization. And two main ways to increase your value is to make your company money and to save the company money. Now, this is one part of the mindset that you should have. When it comes to your career, you must think of your career in terms of adding value to other people first. You must add that value to others before expecting to receive things from other people. Now, this is called the Principle of Reciprocity. This principle means that when somebody gives us something, we feel compelled to give something back in return. And that is why you should focus on always giving to other people instead of taking. And that way, when the time comes, you will be able to make a withdrawal from their trust bank account. And that withdrawal could be in the form of a job opportunity. Now, I think this philosophy is best summed up with a quote from motivational speaker Zig Ziglar. And he said, "You can have everything in life that you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want." So focus on what you can do for other people and focus on the value that you can provide for them. If you make that your focus and you benefit other people, then what you want will be taken care of. So as we go through this webinar today, I would like for you to keep the principle of reciprocity in your mind and think about what you can do to provide value to other people on a daily basis and what you can do in the future as you pursue ideal opportunities for you. And remember that to get what you want in your career and in your life, you must help other people and give them what they want. The second aspect of the proper mindset for advancing your animal health or veterinary career is the willingness to take risks. Now, you might think that the only time that you are taking a risk when trying to grow your career is when you take a job opportunity with another organization. But that's simply not the case because you still have to take risks to get to where you want to go. And they'll just be different risks than if you decided to pursue a job with another organization. So what are some of the examples of the risks that I'm talking about? Well, some of them could be talking with your current boss about what's making you unhappy in your current job situation, or talking with your boss about a promotion, or talking with your boss about other positions or growth opportunities within the company. Now, as you can see, there are risks involved in whichever career path you choose, either staying with your current employer or making a decision to leave and go to another employer. Now, of course, choosing to grow your career by seeking a job with another organization also involves taking risks. However, sometimes it doesn't just stop with that. There are other considerations involved too, such as accepting a job with another company that could involve more responsibility than what you have right now, or moving to another part of the country to pursue a better opportunity, or even moving to another country for a better opportunity. And I have seen people take risks and be rewarded for taking those risks. I've also seen people that do not take risks and then they become penalized for not taking risks. And it didn't matter whether they were taking risks with their current employer or taking risks by joining a new employer. And I have a number of case studies, and I've worked with thousands of people over the years. There's many examples that come to mind, but sometimes individuals will tell me, such as this person living in Topeka, Kansas, he said, "I want to take the next step in my career," but he was only willing to work in Topeka, Kansas, so he was choosing one city in the world to live in and ruling out opportunities in any other locations. So he was not willing to step out and take a risk. And I understand that sometimes people can't move and they do have restrictions, but it is very limiting to their career. So what are some of the things that stop people from taking risks? Well, probably the biggest one is fear. There are a lot of things that people fear, including in the professional realm, and they include some of the following: fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of not meeting expectations, fear of making the wrong decision, or fear of stepping out of their comfort zone. And I have an acronym that I use for dealing with fear, and that acronym is false evidence appearing real. Now, to some degree, fear of change and fear of the unknown are natural emotions. We're all human. However, there are a couple things to keep in mind about fear. Many times in the professional world, people experience the emotion of fear without an actual reason to experience fear. And as a result, what they're actually fearing is the anticipation of an event and not the event itself. Now, I have an example that we can probably all relate to. When you were a child, getting a shot may have been a frightening experience. And if so, you probably remember the drive to the doctor's office and the questions that were running through your mind, such as how big would the needle be, or how many shots would you be getting, or how bad would it hurt? I mean, I know I still have those concerns today. If I know I'm going to get a shot, I wonder those things. So, but when you got to the doctor's office and you got your shot, you probably discovered that thinking about the shot was worse than actually getting the shot. It's the same with overcoming fear and taking a risk. Similar to getting a shot, all sorts of questions race through your mind about the situation. And like getting a shot, it can often turn out that a lot of your fears are unfounded. So instead of looking at a situation with fear, start looking at it as an opportunity, because it could be an opportunity to do something great that's going to lead to some career growth. And nobody ever grew their career by leaps and bounds by playing it safe all the time. Be willing to go after opportunities when they present themselves. And remember, this does not necessarily mean that you have to leave your current employer for another position. You can also seize opportunities there with your current employer, including accepting a promotion or the responsibility to head up a new project. Now, unfortunately, there is a perceived comfort level involved in maintaining the status quo and not taking risks, and there are two problems with this. First of all, none of us knows exactly how everything is going to turn out. It's just not possible. None of us have a crystal ball. And second, by being resistant to change and not taking risks, what you're actually doing is choosing not to grow. And in today's job marketplace, growth is not an option. Growth is mandatory for anybody who is looking to remain valuable and also relevant to an employer, and that includes your current employer. So before you can seize an opportunity, you have to be willing to recognize it as such. And if you view an opportunity as a risk, then you're less likely to seize it. And I have many stories that illustrate what can happen when somebody views an opportunity as a risk. For example, I was at a veterinary trade show and I ran into somebody that I know, and this person ran a large organization and has seen a great deal of things over the years. So during our conversation, he was telling me the story of someone in the animal health industry, and for the purposes of this webinar, I'll refer to that person as Joe. So according to this individual, this coworker, this colleague that works in his organization, Joe, has been in the same function for his entire career, doing mostly the same thing year after year after year. And Joe was once given the opportunity to learn another area of the business, but he turned down the opportunity, which he now regrets. So now Joe is stuck in the same role and the same function in his company's business, and as a result, he feels pigeonholed. So not only that, but Joe's company does not view him as a risk taker or as someone who has experience in any other area of the business other than his department. So Joe now is no longer a spring chicken, and so he expressed concern to my friend that other companies are not willing to take a chance on him, and this current company is not willing to take a chance on him anymore because they had offered him an opportunity in the past and he turned it down. So Joe now feels stuck to ride out his career in the same position with the same company, and that's not actually what he wants. So I called Joe, Pigeonhole Joe. In another situation, I called an individual about an opportunity with one of our clients, an opportunity that was better than the position she currently held. And what made it better? Well, one, it offered more compensation and greater responsibility. It was also located geographically in an area where she said she would rather be. It was closer to family. And she was going to report directly to the head of the business unit. At her current position, there were 3 people between her and the business unit head. She did agree to go on a face-to-face interview, and following that interview, my client was very interested and wanted to move her forward in the interview process. However, she declined to go forward, and she said that she was intimidated by the role, and she said she was afraid that she would not meet my client's expectations. The hiring manager, on the other hand, could not disagree more. The manager was very interested in this person and was disappointed that she did not want to move forward. And she was already on the short list of candidates and had an excellent chance of receiving an offer of employment. And I told her she was selling herself short. But she allows fear to dictate her actions, or in this case, her inactions. But the reality of the situation is that she is paid less than her peers. And I know that because I've talked to most of her peers, and I know that they're paid more. She's allowed herself to get stuck in her current position, which is offering limited opportunity for growth. So she had an option better option, but she rejected it before she had a chance to see where it could go. She turned it down before she even had an offer to consider. And situations like this one are why I tell people that when it comes to turning down a job opportunity, there is really nothing to turn down unless you literally have a job offer in your hand. Because it costs nothing to investigate an opportunity, and what if that opportunity is better than the one that you have right now? And you will never know unless you at least have an offer to consider. And actually, if you don't have the offer in hand, then there really is not a decision for you to make. You're really turning down the idea of an offer and not an actual offer. Now, think about these examples for a moment in terms of your career and your current job situation. Do you look for opportunities? Do you see them as opportunities, or do you see them as a risk? And are you seeking to grow, or will you end up being like my example of Pigeonhole Joe? So we'll talk more about fear later, but I want to move on to the second part of our webinar, and that part is the specific skills that are the most valuable to employers. There are basically two types of skills that organizations look for in potential employees. Those types of skills are hard skills and soft skills. And before we go any further, let's define these two terms. Now, hard skills possess the following two characteristics. They are teachable skills, which means that you can learn them. You can either teach yourself, other people can teach you, or both. And secondly, they are quantifiable. This means they produce quantifiable results, and you can be graded and evaluated for your ability. Soft skills, on the other hand, refer to skills that involve the way that you interact with other people, specifically your boss, your coworkers, your customers, your clients. Now, soft skills are also referred to in other ways, one of which is people skills, which you've probably heard before. There's a weird buzz on the line. Okay, it just went away. I don't know what that was. Okay. Hard skills possess the following two characteristics. Like I just said, they're teachable skills and they're quantifiable. Soft skills, on the other hand, refer to skills that involve the way you interact with other people. So like I was just saying, your boss, your coworkers, your customers. They're the people skills. Now, it doesn't matter necessarily if a skill is hard or soft. It has to do one of the three things that we discussed earlier in the webinar. You need to be able to help the company make money, save the company money, or provide value in some other way to the company. It all comes down to value. The skills that employers want are the ones that will provide them with tangible value of some kind. If you can't offer that value to employers, they will be less likely to want to hire you. A lot of professionals have the same hard skill set. I'm hearing that buzz again. I have no idea what that is. But that hard skill set equates to a certain amount of value. So the question becomes, how do you set yourself apart from everyone else? And that answer is with your soft skill set. Okay, so the soft skills that are the most valuable are called transferable skills. These are soft skills that can be applied to a number of different areas within the specific industry, and they can be transferred from one career to another. And that's not to say that you're looking to get out of your current field of expertise, but if transferable soft skills have that kind of power, then they can help you a tremendous amount. So as an example, let's say that you and another candidate are competing for the same position, and both of you have about the same level of hard skills and the same amount of experience, then soft skills will break the tie. And actually, transferable soft skills will really break that tie since they make you even more valuable as an employee. So the goal is to have as many transferable soft skills as you can. And they make you more valuable to your current organization, and they will make you a more attractive candidate to other organizations once you make the next move in your career. So we'll now take a look at 4 main transferable soft skills, and I got one slide ahead here. The first one is communication. The ability to communicate well is not just a valued skill in the employment marketplace, it is a cherished skill. And that is because miscommunication can be a destructive force within the workplace. All it takes is one miscommunication between two individuals to derail a project or kill a deal. I'm sure all of us have experienced miscommunication at some point. And I'm not just talking about verbal communication skills, but it's important to be proficient in all forms of communication because that is essential to increasing your worth and value as an employee and as a candidate to other employers. And so that also means written communication skills as well as the various forms of nonverbal communication. The second is time management. The ability to maximize your time, not to mention the time of other people, is an extremely valuable skill. That means you get more done in less time. Employers want to hire people who get more work done in less time because that equates to higher levels of production, which in turn equates to higher levels of revenue and ultimately higher levels of profit for the employer. And that is exactly how you tie a skill or trait directly to a potential employer bottom line. The third is sales, or more accurately, the art of persuasion. Now, this does not mean that you have to work in a sales role where you're actually selling things and earning a sales commission. However, the ability to sell something is valuable no matter where you work or the position that you hold. And basically, it boils down to the ability to make other people see your point of view on a subject. So no matter what industry or field in which you work, ideas are bought and sold on a daily basis. If you possess the ability to persuade other people, then you possess value that not everybody else has. And even if you are a veterinarian in a practice, you are selling yourself. You are selling to your clients their compliance, that they're going to follow your guidance and expertise. So all of us, no matter what role we hold, we're all in a sales capacity. So the fourth is leadership. Now, not everybody is a leader, because if everybody was a leader, then nobody would be a leader and there would be no followers. You've probably heard sayings like there are too many chiefs and not enough Indians, or maybe there are too many cooks in the kitchen. But organizations need leaders, and they need leaders at all levels. They want to hire leaders. They want to grow them from within. They want to do whatever they can to find leaders. And specifically, they need genuine leaders, not people who think that they are a leader but really are not. And the fifth one is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence can be broken down into 5 basic components. And those components are awareness, and this means that you should be aware of not just your own emotions, but also the emotions of other people. And this involves being able to identify what those emotions are. That's because you can't understand them if you can't identify them in the first place. The second is regulation. And there are 2 parts to this. First, there is the ability to control your own emotions, especially your emotional response to what happens to you, because we all have things every day that happen to us. Second is your ability to influence the emotional response of other people. And the third is empathy. After identifying the emotions of others, you should be able to empathize with them. Basically, you must put yourself in their place and imagine what emotions they're experiencing. And the fourth is motivation. And motivation speaks to the overriding goal of emotional intelligence. And that goal is to apply emotional intelligence to real-world situations for the purpose of solving problems within the workplace. Because with that in mind, everything stems from motivation. You must be motivated to solve problems through emotional intelligence. And the fifth is social skills. People who are extroverted often have better emotional intelligence skills than those who are introverted, but that's not always the case. But those people who feel at ease in social situations are more likely to excel when it comes to emotional intelligence. There are 5 steps that you can take to develop your emotional intelligence. The first step is to observe and identify your feelings. And as you might imagine, you have to start with yourself. Because before you can practice the skill of emotional intelligence, you must have a firm grasp on your own emotions. How you observe your feelings is up to you, so you should choose a way that works the best for you, but that can include writing them down or typing them out on your phone. And second, identify those things that affect your emotions. And before I go further, identifying your emotions is one thing, but knowing what is driving them is another. And this might involve quite a bit of introspection and self-analysis because sometimes what is affecting you is not readily apparent. And third, identify the things that cause you stress. Once you've identified those things that are affecting your emotions, you can more easily change those things that cause stress. And this is important because the goal of emotional intelligence is successfully handling not only your stress, but also the stress of other people in the workplace. The fourth thing is to put yourself in other people's emotional shoes. Before you can manage other people's emotions, you have to be able to empathize with them, which I just talked about. And to do this, you have to see things from their perspective or their point of view. When you do that, then you'll be able to identify their motivation for the things that they do and say. And then number 5, tie your efforts to a specific outcome or objective. So what specifically do you want to accomplish with your skills and emotional intelligence? And this can vary depending upon the situation, but it's important to have a specific outcome in mind because this can help you to stay the course during the situation in your pursuit of the outcome. And resiliency is a necessity when you're dealing with stressful circumstances. Another important skill in terms of advancing your career is negotiation. Now, negotiation isn't a skill that employers will hire you for per se, but it can come in handy during the hiring process, especially during the interview. And people sometimes think about negotiation in terms of money, and that is certainly part of the process, especially during an interview situation. But I have 3 tips for navigating money during an interview process, because I deal with people all day long, every week in job situations. And a big part of that is getting to the end of the process, and then it's time to negotiate an offer. So one of the things that I tell candidates who are going through a job interview process is do not talk about money too much. If a company is going to offer you a job, then the subject of money, it will come up eventually. And the purpose of going to an interview is to get a job offer. You don't want to jeopardize your chances of getting a job offer. And after all, like I said before, there is no decision to be made on your part unless you actually have a job offer in hand. And so wouldn't it be best to get an offer so that you know what decision there is to make? And if you're focusing too much on money before an offer is even given, then you might not receive an offer at all. And that's because company hiring officials do not want to hire candidates whose number one priority is compensation. And the reason for that is because if they believe that they're only money motivated, they'll also believe that you might either accept a counteroffer from your current employer or that you will leave the organization as soon as another company offers you more money. So the second point is do not bring up money first. It's always best to let the employer bring up the topic of compensation first. If you choose to look at other opportunities in the marketplace and you're going on job interviews, your job at the interview is to sell yourself as being both qualified and interested in the position so that the employer will want to make you a job offer of employment. If the employer is interested in you at some point, they're going to bring up the compensation topic. When the employer brings up money, the best way to handle this question is to say, obviously, I'm looking for your best offer, but career challenge and opportunity will weigh heavily on my decision. You must have a range in mind that you're planning to pay the person in this position. I'd like to be somewhere within your range based upon my qualifications and what I bring to the table. And this does not sidestep the question. You're answering the question without giving a specific number. And that's a good idea because if you give a number that's too low, then you can leave money on the table. And if you provide a number that's too high, then you can price yourself out of the market. So ask the employer to make their best offer so that you can have something to consider. And I do want to mention one thing because in my search practice, I'm often asked by candidates, how much does this position pay or what is the range for the position? And while I know every organization has a budget and they do have a range typically, my answer to those individuals is what depends on how well that you interview. Because in my work and working with thousands of people over the years and placing more people than I can can remember at this point. It truly is that. The people that interview the best are the ones that get the highest offer or get the best offers. The ones that tend to focus on the money and they're not as focused on doing a good job at the interview are the ones that typically either don't get the offer or don't get the offer that they would like to have. The third point I want to make is do not accept the first offer unless you're working through a recruiter, because a company will not always make its best salary offer right away. And some hiring officials expect that there will be some negotiation regarding the salary. Now, if you're working through a recruiter, the recruiter should know what your expectations are and what the employer's range is, and they should be able to help you negotiate a fair compensation package for both parties. And the recruiter should ask their client to make their best offer and be able to accept it on your behalf because they should already know what you need. Now I'm going to discuss the single most important factor that contributes to career success. And everything I've said up to this point is important, but they won't mean much if you don't practice the next thing I'm going to talk about. The most important factor that contributes to career success is being open to opportunity. During my more than 2 decades of working as a search consultant, I have literally spoken and worked with thousands of professionals. And during that time, I have learned there are 2 kinds of people. There are those people who are open to opportunity and people who are not open to opportunity. And here's something else that I've learned. The people who are open to opportunity are typically more successful in their careers than those people who are not open to opportunity. Now, that's not always the case, but it is the case in the vast majority of instances. When I talk to professionals, one of the first questions I ask them is, are you open to hearing about another opportunity at this time? And some people are simply not open. In fact, some are closed and they will say no before they even know what they're saying no to. And I have a case study regarding a situation that happened. I called somebody and I let him know about an opportunity, but before I could even tell him what the opportunity was, he literally said, I am not open to opportunity. And I thought, well, now why would he say that before he even knows what the opportunity was? And how did he even know what he just said no to? Now, in this particular instance, I knew the person involved. I had observed and been following his career for about 10 years. As a result, I knew that the opportunity that I was presenting was a higher level position than the position he currently held. I also knew that the opportunity was with one of the top employers in the industry. And this is all good information. However, I was not able to communicate this information to this person. This individual did not know what the position was, what company it was with, or anything else about it. All he knew was that I was calling about an opportunity and he was not interested in hearing about any opportunities. Now, I do believe this. I believe if he had listened to what the opportunity was, he might have very well been interested because it was a more prestigious role with a more prestigious company in the profession. And I thought, well, what part of that is not interesting? One of the most successful people that I know within the animal health industry told me that early in his career, his mentor instructed him countless times to never say no to an opportunity without first hearing about the opportunity. And his mentor told him to always be open to at least hearing about the opportunity, and then it cost you nothing to listen. So that brings me back to those people that I have encountered who are open. When I ask the question, are you open to hearing about another opportunity at this time? Those people who are open usually say one of 2 things. They usually say, yes, I'm open to hearing about it, or yes, and what kind of opportunity do you have? Or tell me more about this opportunity. And all of these people are agreeing to is hearing about what the opportunity is and then deciding whether or not they're interested. What they're not doing is committing themselves to the opportunity. And they're also not saying, yes, I'm ready to resign from my current employer today and leave tomorrow to take this opportunity. What they're really doing is creating some options for themselves. And more options are good, and then you're free to choose whatever option is best for you. Now, basically, these individuals have created the following options for themselves. They can listen to the opportunity and then decide that they do not want to move forward, which is fine. Or they can listen to the opportunity and decide that they do want to move forward because they believe it's going to enhance their career and progress them forward. Now, if they choose option 2, they still have options from which to choose. They can later decide that they're no longer interested in the opportunity as they get further into the process if they believe it's not better than the position they have now. Or they can later decide that they're still interested in the opportunity if they believe that this is in fact better than what they have right now. The bottom line is that people who are open to hearing about a new opportunity, they're giving themselves options. And as a result, that is why they enjoy more success in their careers. Being open to opportunities is one way to be proactive. And when it comes to your career, it is much better to be proactive than it is to be reactive. And we've already discussed the challenges that exist in the marketplace, including the fact that job security is a myth. And that's why it's important to be proactive. I'd like to reference a book that I highly recommend. It's Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty by best-selling author Harvey Mackay. And this is a book that every professional needs to read because by most estimates, you can only live about 3 days without water. So in a literal sense, you have to dig your well before you're thirsty, or you could run the risk of death. And I know that's an extreme example. But in the figurative sense, when you are unemployed, you probably need a job right now. However, just like digging a well, it's going to take some time to find a better job. A job is not going to just fall into your lap just because today you find yourself unemployed. The worst time to look for a new job is when you find yourself unemployed. And the best time to look for new opportunities is when you have a good job, because then you can strategically advance your career forward and you have more leverage in that situation. So let me illustrate a point with this story. I received a phone call from a person who had been unemployed for about 9 months. And during the course of our conversation, I wondered why this person had not contacted me 9 months earlier. He had sent out numerous resumes to many different employers and had gotten nowhere. And then he was expecting me to help him find a job, a task that made it all the more difficult by the fact that he had already sent his resume to many different companies with no results. If he had contacted me 9 months ago, or better yet, before he became unemployed, I would have been in a much better position to help him because we could have been proactive and strategic rather than to be reactive to him losing his job. In another situation, I contacted an individual about a position I believe she would be a great fit for, and she did not respond right away, and it took her about 3 weeks to get back to me. When she finally did get back to me, she told me that her current job was going to be ending at the end of the month because her employer was going to be going through a realignment. And so, as you can imagine, now she was interested in the position that I had contacted her about 3 weeks earlier. The problem was that the position had already been filled. So it was too late. Had she decided 3 weeks earlier to call me back, she was a great fit. So she probably would have been well into the interview process and might have received an offer of employment. Another time, in 2012, I reached out to a professional in the animal health industry to see if they would be open to exploring other opportunities. And they got back to me, but they got back to me in 2016. So they got back to me 4 years later because they found out they were losing their job with their current employer, and now they wanted a professional search consultant to help them find a new position. But in this situation, they were not moving from a position of strength, but from a position of weakness. The moral of these 3 stories is that it's much better to take a strategic approach to your career and to your job search. In other words, it's best to dig your well before you're thirsty. So as we wrap up today's presentation, keep in mind what we've covered regarding how to advance your career. Identify the challenges that exist in the marketplace. Decide which way you would like to grow your career, either if there's opportunities with your current employer or if you're going to need to leave to go to look for opportunities at other employers. Shift your mindset with the principle of reciprocity. What can I do for other people first? And then be willing to take risks and let go of fear. And look at opportunities as opportunities and not as risks. Gain transferable soft skills, because I believe that some of these soft skills are things that can be taught and learned. They're not necessarily something that we're born with. And it's important to be proactive instead of reactive, and be open to opportunity. Don't be closed to opportunity. And if you do these things, I can say with almost certainty that you're going to give yourself a better chance of success of advancing your career. And as I said, I've been in search for over 20 years now, and I've seen what works and what doesn't work. And what we've discussed today are things that definitely do work. So if you have any questions about what I've talked about or how you can take the next step in your career, you're welcome to contact me. Here's my contact information here. And also, we do a monthly newsletter. We send out a newsletter with career tips twice a month and hot job opportunities. And you can also connect with the Vet Recruiter on the different social media platforms. So I think we might have some questions. I don't think I said at the beginning, actually we don't. At the beginning of the webinar, I should have said that we're open for questions. Looks like we actually do have a question here. If you do have any questions, feel free to post them in the question box there on your screen. But somebody asked, what suggestions do I have for Pigeonhole Joe? And that's a very good question. What I would suggest to Pigeonhole Joe is I would have him talk to his current employer and just let them know that he is open to opportunities, and maybe explain why he wasn't open to opportunities earlier in his career. Maybe his circumstances were different at that time, where the role just, he could not handle the role. Maybe it required more travel, or there was some reason he couldn't do it. But I would go back to his current employer and try to convince them that he is open for growth, and he does want to. There's also things he could do outside of his employer. He could take classes. He could maybe go back to school, learn some new skills, maybe learn some new technology. But I would first advise him to try to do everything he can in his current employer to try to feel things out and see what there might be available, and try to convince them that he is open to career growth. And then secondly, if he's not able to find opportunities within his current organization, then I would recommend that he start networking with other organizations. And that's really the biggest way to find opportunities, is through networking, because you never know who somebody else is going to know. Your contacts know people that you don't know, and they can introduce you to people that may have opportunities that don't know you, but if they were aware of you, they may be able to present you with opportunities. So I would say networking is one of the best ways to find out about job opportunities and to get to know what other people are working on and what other organizations are doing. So that would be my recommendation. So if you have any other questions, feel free to post them now. I don't see any other questions.
Hey, Stacy, it's Whitney. I'm going to ask a question. Thank you so much for that wonderful webinar. It was so informative and such good information. So my question, I think probably one of the things that folks would struggle with the most is when you talked about, approaching your current supervisor or workplace with either looking for promotion or even just discussing maybe some pain points within the organization that you may be experiencing. Do you have any specific recommendations for how to approach that conversation? Because I know folks are always worried if I bring up something that I don't like, it may affect my either advancement ability or even my job security.
That's a very good question, and what I would say to that is that timing is everything. Approach your current employer when they're not in the middle of a merger acquisition, or when there's a deadline pending. If there's something going on that is really keeping the supervisor tied up and busy, that's not a good time. I would wait until maybe a slower time, or when the supervisor's in a great mood and doesn't have a lot of pressures and deadlines. And I would be prepared. I would go back and I would think about all of the things that you have done to benefit your organization and all the things that you've contributed. And I would sit down with your supervisor and just let them know that you're interested in talking with them first of all, I'd make an appointment, let them know that you would like to sit down at a time that's convenient for them to discuss your career. And then once you make that appointment, you sit down with your supervisor, I would let them know. You have to toot your own horn in this situation because you can't necessarily expect that your supervisor is going to remember all of your contributions to the organization, because you have to think about your supervisor is focused on their own career, and they're worried about their own career and advancement and the responsibilities they have within the organization. So you have to remind them of your contributions and what you've done to the company, and then let them know that you want to continue to benefit the company by, and also growing your own career within the organization. So you might just ask them questions about that and just say, what opportunities do you see for me within the organization to grow new skills and gain more experiences that I can use to continue to benefit this organization. So that would be the first step I would take. But like I said, timing and finding the right time to have that conversation is key.
Great. And I don't think I'm seeing the questions come across on my platform. Not sure if any more questions have come across for you.
Let me look here. I think there is another question. I think there might be a couple. Let me just look here to figure out how to expand this box where I can see more of it. Okay, if an individual is not sure. Okay, here's a good question. Someone is asking, if an individual is not sure about whether they are really looking for another position, but they're curious to see what's out there, would you recommend that the individual reach out to me to begin a dialogue? And I would say absolutely yes. I have people that reach out to me all the time. I mean, daily. I get people reaching out to me about their career. I mean, sometimes it's just a question about their compensation or what I'm seeing in the industry. Questions like, can you tell me if my compensation is competitive to what you're seeing with other people in the profession with my level of expertise at other companies? Or sometimes it's questions about, like the one, Whitney, you just asked about, how do I approach my boss? Or I think it's a good, reaching out to a search consultant. Search consultants talk to so many people at so many organizations on a daily basis, and they understand what's going on in the job market, and they can help you, even if you're not looking for a position and you want to stay. They can be a resource or a sounding board to you just to give you advice and feedback on your career. So I think it's never too early to start a relationship. So I would say absolutely. I think there's another question here about LinkedIn. Somebody's asking about approaching networking using a marketing sheet like LinkedIn. Not sure I completely understand. I think they're asking about how to approach networking and should you use a marketing sheet such as LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great tool, and LinkedIn is one of the best ways for networking. You can start with your connections on LinkedIn, and you'll notice that your connections are connected to other people that you might want to be connected with. So you can ask your connections, the people that you know, to introduce you to other people that they're connected with that you want to connect with too. And what I recommend when you reach out to someone on LinkedIn like that is to reach out and introduce yourself and talk about something that you've seen on their profile. You can compliment them on an accomplishment that you see on their profile, or just let them know that you looked at their profile and you're impressed with their qualifications, that they're somebody that you would like to network with. And you can say, do you mind if I connect with you on LinkedIn? And you could even say, would you be open to an introduction on the phone so I can learn more about you and you can learn more about me, and I can introduce myself. And that's really the purpose of LinkedIn. That's what LinkedIn is for. And I get people all day long that connect with me on LinkedIn that I don't even know. And they reach out and say, can I join your network? I want to learn from you. I think that's a compliment to somebody that you want to connect with them. So I would definitely recommend using LinkedIn. And if you have a marketing sheet, I'm not sure exactly the question on that, but if there's a list of certain people that you have that you want to connect with on LinkedIn, you could certainly start with that sheet of names that you've put together. Okay, I think we have another question here. Oh, somebody's asking if I recommend upgrading to premium. I don't really know on that because LinkedIn has they've changed some of that recently, and I have a different level of LinkedIn since I'm on their recruiter platform. So I would just check with LinkedIn on that and see what the benefit is to you on upgrading, or maybe check with some other people that upgrade. But there might be some benefits to upgrading on LinkedIn. And somebody's asking about any suggestions for the unemployed, someone that's been out of business for a while, retired, but wants to get back in. And I would say just start with your own network, just figure out what it is exactly that you want to do, and start connecting with people in your network and letting them know what you want to do. And whatever it is that you want to do, ask your network if they're aware of opportunities like that and if they can help you get connected with those kind of opportunities. So I would just start with your own network and being proactive about reaching out to people and letting them know what your goals are and just asking them if they can help you get connected or if they're aware of any opportunities. And if anybody, that looks like the last question, if anybody does have any other questions after we close here, you're welcome to send me an email. And I also want to thank WVLDI for inviting me to today's webinar. And thank you, Whitney, for hosting today's webinar.
Great. Well, we appreciate the partnership as well, Stacy. And like I said, it was great information, and I hope all of our folks on the call learned something today and are able to take this back for your own career development and progression. As I stated before, we will be posting this recorded webinar on our website, and as well as Stacy will have it available. So we will have that up for if you know anybody that might benefit or somebody that couldn't be on with us live today. And as Stacy said, you can contact her at her different various ways to contact her that are up on the screen, as well as social media. And please also go to the WVLDI website, which is wvldi.org, or any of our social media platforms, and follow us for future webinars or activities at conventions, and just any other resources that we may have. And always contact us if anybody out there needs any support or is interested in leadership within the profession and wants to learn more. So again, thank you so much, Stacy, and we really appreciate all the information, and I hope everybody has a great day.
Have a great day.
Thank you.